Hey there everyone. This video is mainly for you Nikon folks out there. I thought it might be a little helpful for me to talk about the three different cameras that Emily and I own. So we have the Z9, the Z8, and the Z6III. I've been shooting all of them for quite a long time, the Z9 since it came out, and actually the Z6III since it came out. Emily's had the Z8. She had a Z9 first, and then swapped it out for a Z8, mainly because of the obvious difference between the two, right? So there's some obvious things to talk about here. The size difference, right? So what's the advantage of having this big camera like this? Well, the one disadvantage is carrying the damn thing around. It sucks. But I have to say, I do love the vertical shutter grip. I really do. And I know you can add one to probably both these cameras. I know definitely the Z8. So you can add one and get it up there. But then again, at that point, you're just basically moving it up to this camera. So not much of a reason to have the others if you like the smaller form factor. So I love this one for the vertical shutter grip, and then the obvious other difference is the battery life. A much larger battery. I mean, you're talking absolute all-day battery life. With the Z9, I never think about or worry about battery life. It's something that just doesn't cross my mind when I'm out in the field, honestly. I've shot for multiple days, you know, with minimal shooting all day long without having to worry about recharging it. With these other two cameras, the Z8 and the Z6III, you definitely have to pay attention and manage your battery life. That being said, I think they're both great regarding the battery life. So here we have Z8 and Z9, the function buttons on the front. Z8 has 2, Z9 has 3. I do have all 3 of those programmed to do different things, so that is nice. And then other than that, I mean, you get like the dial up here. The buttons on the top are the same on the side, so you do get the frame rate dial. I don't really change that often, so not a big deal. You can just dig into the menu and change it here. Other than that, they physically operate the same way. I can shoot seamless from one to the other without much of a difference. The sensor's the same, like just everything seems exactly the same. So when do we get the difference? Obviously it's the Z6III. The lower resolution is probably going to be an issue for some of you. For me, I can only share my opinion. It does not matter even a little bit. I can't think of a time, it's probably happened, but I generally can't think of a time where I chose the Z9 or Z8 to shoot solely for the resolution. Other than when I'm shooting video. The video is more interesting with both of those cameras because you can shoot the cropped in, still 4K video. So I think it's a 1.5 crop factor. You can still shoot 4K 120. You can't do that. There is no crop factor with this. It's just shooting the full frame video, and no matter how you set it. That being said, the Z6III does go up to 240 frames a second for video versus the 120 that you get on both of those. So the Z9 and Z8 both give you 4 times slow motion. The Z6III gives you 8 times slow motion. So that's kind of cool. And I have picked this camera specifically for video when I'm trying to do the slowest motion stuff, like that clean, really slow look that you get with 240 frames a second. But it is a bummer not being able to do the punched in crop video that I can do with these higher resolution sensors. Outside of that, guys, the image quality, I've listened to things and read things about the Z6III here having lower dynamic range. I'm sure it exists. I'm not disputing those claims at all if you pixel peep, but in the real world shooting scenarios, which is all I really do, I cannot tell a difference. I shoot all 3 of these cameras the exact same way, which for me is letting them go anywhere from the base ISO up to, I've shot up to 16,000 ISO with these things, and have been very happy with the results. Of course they're noisy, you gotta do some noise reduction, but it works. I don't shoot this any different than I do the Z9 or the Z8, and yeah, I just love the images out of it. Yeah, can you zoom in further on these? Of course, right? But other than being able to zoom in on the back of the computer and see more detail, how does it affect the actual presentation of the photos when you're sharing them on social media? We're viewing them on our phones, not much bigger than this, right? And so why do we need 40 plus megapixels? I can't come up with a reason for it. So for me, resolution is a non-issue, this one being 24 megapixels. So other than that, yeah, this is the lightest of the bodies. The Z6III is a little bit lighter than the Z8. I do like the deeper grip on the Z8. It does feel more comfortable in my hands. Some people might find the Z6III a little bit more shallow grip, just more comfortable. Depends on the size of your hands and just the way you hold the camera. And then the one other absolute biggest form factor difference between all of these cameras for me is the flip screen. So if we take a look at the flip screen on the Z6III, I have to flip it out like this and then rotate it to be able to shoot like low level stuff, right? And so that's how I use this most of the time. So I want to shoot a low angle. I don't feel like laying down in some messy, dirty, wet, uncomfortable stuff. And so I just crouch or, bend over, get down on a knee, and then hold the camera down low. And now I have my screen out to the side. Doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but lining up your subject with this screen out to the side is a bit more of a pain, and having it stick out like that. So normally with a lens on here, my hand comes in here to support the lens, and you can see it's hitting my arm and it rotates the thing, it pushes it away. I'm constantly fiddling with this thing, honestly. Going vertical isn't that bad, so you can, hold it like this for vertical, but it's still not as nice as this one, vertical, which it's like integrated into the middle. It's lined up more in the middle of the camera body, so when I go down low to the ground, I'm not pushing my flip screen onto the ground. I know this is not a big deal for a lot of people, but for me, it is a huge deal. I use this flip screen a lot, and I encourage everybody watching this to practice with it and get better with it, because it makes a big difference. It really does. If you get good at using this flip screen, you can get shots that you sometimes couldn't otherwise. Recently I was shooting something, trying to get a background, and I had the camera held up like this, like over my head, and using the flip screen so I could get the background that I wanted. Countless times I flip the screen this way, and this is where the Z8, Z9 flip screen to me is so much better. Number one, it's an easier move, right? So it's just flip it out like that, I'm ready to go. And then B, it's lined up with the center of the camera, so it does make acquiring a subject and tracking them a bit easier than this one, which is out on the side, right? So the move I have to do here, if I have my screen visible, is flip it out and then rotate it. Again, not that big a deal, but in the heat of the moment, you see something real quick and you got to do it, you're fumbling around with it more. And then that little bit of having it off to the side here, not lined up with this, throws off acquiring that subject. I have gotten better at it, so I don't think it's really meant missed shots for me, but I just don't like it. It's just not as easy to use, as comfortable to use, and yeah. So that's the biggest complaint I have of the Z6III, honestly. If this had the same flip screen that these cameras have, I would shoot it probably a ton of times. So when do I pick the Z6III over my Z9, which is usually what I shoot, because Emily's usually using the Z8, which is hers. I pick it for lightweight. That's what I pick it for. It's like if I'm going to go hiking or I just don't feel like dragging this thing around, I'm going to pick this. The one other time is when I know I'm going to be shooting and want the extra slow motion video, the 240 frames a second this Z6III gives me. For all other circumstances, I do love the Z9. I also love having the locations of everything I've shot embedded. So on the Z9, which is the only one of the three that has the embedded GPS in it, I do leave that on, and the battery life, at least in my opinion, is not affected that adversely. So like I said, I can still shoot multiple days with it. And the nice thing is that when I import my photos into Lightroom on the computer here, all the locations of every photo I've taken are pinned onto the map there. I do love that. It's just a little back-end organizational thing that I personally do use quite often. And it's a nice feature to have that I don't get on either of these other two cameras. So one other thing I know you're all curious about is autofocus, right? So the one difference there is currently right now, but I believe it's supposed to be updated, the Z6III does not have bird eye tracking in it. It only has the animal one. That being said, I have a video that I've put out, and I'll link to it in the description of this one as well. When I first got the Z6III and compared the autofocus to the Z9, the animal focus setting seems to do better for birds in almost every circumstance I can come up with. So much so that on the Z9 now, I almost exclusively shoot it on animal instead of bird. It has the bird setup in there, but time and time again, and I've done this multiple times in the field, I've actually had a subject there and I'm normally on my animal mode, and then there's a cooperative subject and it pops into my head. Let me try and switch over to bird and see what it does. The animal mode picks up the eye much better and at a further distance than the bird mode does in a bunch of scenarios for me. I notice it the most with songbirds, but even with wading birds, shorebirds, and stuff like that. So I exclusively leave the Z9 on the animal eye tracking now instead of the bird. I don't know why they have a bird version, because it seems to be worse in the real world shooting, in my experience anyway. I'll try and do a video at some point of being out in the field and showing the difference with actual birds, if I can get that put together. But I'm telling you guys, like, hands down, in my experience, because the Z6III had only the animal eye tracking, that's where I noticed the difference, and I noticed it being better. So then when I tried the animal on the Z9, it just worked better than the bird setting. So even if the bird setting does come to the Z6III, which I think the rumors are it's supposed to, I personally won't care. I'm just going to be sticking with the animal one because it works better. So I just wanted to share my experience with all three of these cameras over the past few years and maybe give you some things to think about if you're trying to decide for purchasing one of these cameras for yourself. I can tell you, hands down, you're going to be thrilled with any of them. Outside of that, guys, it's just a price difference and the size thing, you know?